All right, I think we're ready. Hello and welcome to another Lunch and Learn session sponsored by AT Still University Information Technology and Services Group. We're glad that you're with us for this broadcast from either Google Plus or YouTube. We are once again using internet broadcasting technology via Google Hangouts for today's session. And we use Google Hangouts for a couple of reasons. First, Hangouts are available to everyone at ATSU through our ATSU Google Apps for Education account. And then second is because Hangouts incorporate both social networking and collaboration tools. And we know that many of us are just too busy with the day-to-day routine to kind of play with these technologies or spend dedicated time learning how to use these online collaboration tools. So we hope you will find not only the topics and information presented are useful to you, but that these sessions also help you get more comfortable with this form of online interaction. So we ourselves continue to experiment with the Lunch and Learn sessions as an opportunity to find better ways of communicating and collaborating with the ATSU community and beyond. So hopefully these sessions we will discover new ways to build virtual community, share more ideas, and evolve our geographically separate campuses into a cohesive and connected learning organization. So to make these sessions more interactive, we really want you to experiment with us by participating in the session. And participation is easy. You can add your comments to what we refer to as the chat room. The chat room is simply the comment area for this event on Google+. It's the area right below the video window in your stream that says add a comment. Just go ahead and type in your own version of hello world or I'm here into that area. Don't worry, you won't break anything. Sometimes it does take a few seconds for all of the posts to show up, so just be patient. And then we have people that are monitoring that chat area, and we'll try and include any comments, ideas, or questions that come into that area during the session into the discussion. And we really encourage you to ask questions, share your opinions, post your thoughts, or even throw the virtual tomatoes by using that comment box below the Google Plus Hangout video area. So in addition for today, we're going to, as I said, continue to experiment. So we're going to try a new tool that also allows us to monitor our comments made to Twitter. So if you, and we're going to use the hashtag ATSULL, so ATSULL. So if you have a Twitter account and you prefer to share comments that way, then send in your tweets with the hashtag #ATSULL, and we'll try to include those comments too. Don't worry if we don't see them right away. We're just testing this out, so we'll see how that works. And if you don't know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. Ideally, all of these comments will help broaden the discussion and add some healthy and hopefully fun variety around the topic. And today's session is on mobile computing and mobile learning. It's one that was highly rated in the survey we did back in October, and I think it will generate some really good conversation on a variety of levels. We'll try and hit on some ATSU specific issues and projects, and then also really take a look at some broader trends and project examples in both global education and healthcare that are related to the expansion of mobile devices. So kind of a big picture session today, and then we'll try and delve down into a little bit more specifics as well. And to help us sort through the many changes being brought about by mobile devices, we welcome Ms. Inge Ward. Inge is currently M-Learning and Mooc expert from the Institute of Tropical Medicine in Antwerp, Belgium. She has a background in both IT and pedagogy, and she has been working in e-learning areas for over a decade. Now, I met Inge during an online, it's called a MOBA Mooc session that she hosts that brings together online lots of experts and other people interested in mobile learning technologies and mobile learning in general. And I have to admit, Inge, I really lurked during most of those sessions. But I was struck by the huge variety of topics and interest all over the place in mobile learning by all of the participants in the MOBA Mooc. So it was great. So Inge brings a very wide breadth of both experience and exposure to the topics of mobile computing, and I'm just thrilled that she agreed to help us explore these areas. So welcome, Inge Ward.
Thank you, Brian, and what an introduction. Wow.
Yeah, well, we could even talk a little bit more about your new credentials, hey? So
yes.
Earlier this week, Inge just defended her thesis. And what was it in?
It was on the impact of mobile accessibility on learner interactions in a massive open online course, which is, well, it sounds like really boring, but it was actually quite interesting because, well, it relates to mobile learning and the effect of repetition on learner and dialogue on learner retention. So.
Yeah, I think it's right up the alley. So this is going to be a great discussion, I think. I think maybe to kick off our conversation, I kind of want to set the stage on the topic. And we as tech people kind of take for granted that mobile is just taking over. But I'm wondering, what kind of stats and data are people looking at to kind of show that trend toward mobile? Are you aware of stats? I know I look at lots.
There are a lot of stats out there, but because you are, for the biggest part, a health institute, I try to find some health data, and I put them together in a slide. I will just show the slide, come back again, so you
Oh,
can see.
beautiful. Yeah, great.
Is that okay? So, here. So here are some of the mobile data. I mean, to me, it was quite impressive to see it. You can also link to the full document later if you want to. Focusing on mobile education, there is this growing market which indicates that by 2020 there will be a 70 billion market opportunity for mobile education. Now that's a global estimate, and I think it's quite a low estimate, I figure, because mobile devices are beginning to really attract global attention for many reasons. And if you look at mobile health, then it's amazing, because in just over 4 years' time, it will probably be worth 23 billion US dollars, and which is really dispersed across many continents. So that's quite impressive. Well, to me that is. But I'll come back.
Great.
So I feel that I'm not coming back the way it's supposed to be, probably.
Oh, yep. We still hear you. So it's just your video's not quite there yet.
I'll try to close this screen otherwise. Okay. This will be better.
Yeah, I mean, I think as, like I said, as IT people, we kind of take the whole mobile thing for granted. But as I was looking through some of the data, the predictions at the beginning of 2012 would be that there were more mobile devices on the planet than there were people. With lots of the more developing countries actually being in the lead with moving toward mobile.
Definitely, because well, you probably know it yourself, or in my case, I have multiple mobile devices, and it's the same all over the world. I mean, people buy not just the one mobile device; they buy smartphone, tablets, and all over the place. Also in Africa, it's an amazing growing country, because in a way they crossed over to mobiles immediately, for mobile internet, for communications. The same even in like countries like Bangladesh have really innovative mobile projects, both in education and in health. So it's quite amazing what is happening.
Yeah, I think there may be some disagreement on how quickly things are changing, but there's no doubt that the trend in the real impact is going to be on mobile for both learning and I think for education and healthcare.
Yeah, but also if you look at the latest innovations, I mean, you take a mobile device, and for instance, microneedles, you stick them to your arm and you can get the results of your blood glucose on your mobile device, or there are so many things, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, in a couple of years, in our homes, there will probably be like protein indicators that are screened when the first moment you wake up, something like that. I mean, there is so much going on, and it's also in education. I mean, mobile is going probably mobile is going to erase itself by becoming so normal and such a big part of our lives that we will not even think about it. Or that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of us are still in the paradigm when we think of mobile as, smartphones, tablets, computing devices. But really, I think the big impact on mobile that we're just starting to see is what you're talking about, specific functional devices. So your scale that sends, your weight up to the internet or into the cloud. These devices that are single purpose
Yes.
devices that will have a huge impact not only on healthcare, but education, on all of the things that we do.
Yes, it's really generic. So that's one of the most um, impressive changes, I think, from a technological point of view, but also from a societal point of view. So, well, I'm of course enthusiastic about it. So that's
Yeah, you and me both. Let's agree that mobile is moving at some fast speed. We won't say how quickly and how soon it will take over things, but certainly that's the trend. What are some examples of mobile projects that you're seeing? And maybe let's start first just in the education space.
in education, it goes in any possible creative direction. I mean, it starts from easy content production, let's say, to augmented reality being used to really get the learners or the students completely immersed in the reality that they are, or in the context where they're at. For instance, um, one I really like is the one where you go to the Forum Romanum in Italy, which is the impressive Roman remains. But if you take a look at it, I mean, it's just remains. If you take a look in face-to-face live. But if you have the augmented reality application, you see the complete buildings being restored. You see all angles. You can ask the content on how they built it, which type of fighting went on in the arenas, all these kinds of things, historical facts, and also very much a lot of visual material. So it speaks to all the senses. And then, of course, you have this broadening of the classroom. All of a sudden, you can really feel or understand what you are learning because you go into the field, you experience it through some mobile visuals. I mean, it's quite.
Why do you think it is that mobile is so much more engaging? I mean, I think that there is that aspect to it, but why does mobile lend itself toward a more engaging, immersive experience?
There are some discussions about that, but in my view, it's because it's part of ownership and part of immediacy or need. So in a mobile device, you can have multiple devices, but still, if you take the mobile device into account for learning, it will be a device owned by yourself in most cases. So you feel closer to it already than the computer at a work station or something like that. And then you also, with that content, normally you have all these, well, you have, like the internet, you have a lot of options, but you go and search for something that is of interest to you. So in a way, it also can answer a need, and it offers much more possibilities for learning styles because you can either see it, listen to it, read the text if you're a textual oriented person, or there are much more personal adaptations that you can choose from, which I think.
So there's a little more opportunity, I'd say, for creating content for an individual's learning style
Yes.
with mobile, maybe than you would have in traditional type classroom settings. But one thing that I'm curious about is, and maybe you can use the MOOC as kind of an example on one end. We hear two conversations. We hear one conversation is the Mooc, where you have these massively online areas where we're trying to get many people to participate in a session. But then you also think of the mobile space as a place where you can have better one-to-one interaction. And so it almost seems like you see it on both sides of the spectrum.
Yes, but I think they're both part of the same whole or the same entity, because in a way mobile also lends itself for very private courses, because if you don't you sometimes you don't want to learn about something specific in the open, you just want, or you don't want to participate in a health project if people can recognize you. And so with mobiles, it's much safer on one hand. And indeed, this privacy or this secluded element which is made possible with mobile devices is a very important one for trust and the motivation to really engage with the content that might be found or is offered. Now, on the other side, you have these Moocs, and what research shows is that, in fact, if you combine both, the learners will take out much more than if you just leave a Mooc more web-based, or if you just keep mobile learning centered on mobile devices solely. So there is this interesting strengthening happening when you get them both together. But the one doesn't exclude the other. It really strengthens each other because they have different affordances, but it's only in the detail that the differences really occur.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, how you can really use the Mooc as kind of a broad platform for a topic, but then really almost a self-guided type tool then can go into a personal learning activity on the handheld device. So you really can combine the two of them. I think that's an interesting observation.
Yes, and also what I really like about mobiles, and which makes all the difference, is the fact that you can produce content yourself. I mean, it's really a content production device as well. So it makes it much more interesting, much more authentic to use that device for assignments or discussions than a computer.
Yeah, I said we would go back to some of the specific ATSU things. One of our medical programs at ATSU has an iPad initiative. And it was really an initiative that was student driven, where all of the students in the entering class this year have iPads. And the idea wasn't really so much from a consumption standpoint. It wasn't the instructors who were saying that students need this. It was the students saying, this is a better tool for me to learn on and organize all of my material. And so they actually taught each other how to take notes on the device, how to organize their material, how to create, as you say. So they're augmenting their whether it's a PowerPoint or just notes that they receive, they're taking additional notes and overlaying them with their own personal observations on things. It's really been a very well-received project.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's massive. Also, if you would use that type of approach with adult learning or alumni learning, post-course learning, it would be, I mean, we did one project like that, continued medical education, and it really takes off because it's not just the delivery, as you say. It's really about getting a community together, exchanging experiences, and then growing because you use the mobiles, because you start discussions. So it's such a great thing that you do with your students. I mean, wow, it must have given you quite some energy, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's great to work with these students, because the other thing that I was going to ask you about are, most of the times we're thinking about projects that are kind of from the instructor to the student, but I think there are projects for professional development or mentoring that can kind of occur and kind of bring things in the other direction as well.
Yes, definitely. and it's due to the device because it's a communicative device by it's an excellent communicative device. So it lends itself for really getting peer-to-peer interaction going. And I feel it can be like if you have it can happen on the work floor, like nurses supporting each other with things they learn on the job. And or of course it's generic, so it could be engineers and everything. Or also really getting students to really build something from their own perspective, exchanging that information and starting to think critically, because as the more discussions are happening, I feel the more critical thinking is beginning to really manifest itself in all those projects, so, which I think is also nice.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it on the side, but we really haven't thought about social networking is really an important component of mobile, because you've mentioned community a couple of times. Really, that's the social networking that's available through these mobile devices that really adds a whole nother layer of intimacy with people that may be, thousands of miles apart from one another.
Absolutely. This social media accessibility actually makes a complete difference, because even if you have, like, if the context is really specific, or you work, for instance, on this very specific, or let's say on Ebola, uh, as an expert, you would work on that one. I mean, the experts on Ebola would be like very limited. But with those mobile devices, you can really get a community going and stay in touch with each other, and also build a trusting kind of relationship, if you're willing to exchange thoughts that you have, of course, because I feel that although all these options are now available and you can access them anytime you want to, if you have the device for it, if you have the infrastructure for it, I feel that it still comes, it's the human, it's your own personality which makes you either want to share or not, or want to connect or not. Or so I feel it's at the end it will boil down to the personal learning preferences or characteristics again.
Yeah, I totally agree. What have you seen in terms of quality from mobile education projects?
And from my point of view, the quality would be linked to a durability. So that project at the beginning, when mobile learning projects started to emerge, most of the time those were those projects were limited in time. So we would, for instance, because I work in an international environment, and specifically with developing regions, what we would do, we would go to Africa, a specific country in Africa, and do this project for like 3 months, and then we go out again, and then there was no durable evidence afterwards, or no project that was sustained afterwards. And then to me, although we felt that it was very good quality, content-wise and interaction-wise, it didn't, in the end, it wasn't a strong qualitative project because it didn't last. Now, we learned a lot from those projects, and it happened all across the world, because everybody was going in and going out again and seeing, well, okay, this doesn't work, how much effort we put into it. But then we started different projects, and one was also with a a combination of rural and non-rural areas, and there we built upon the people themselves, let them really grow like you do with your students, let them make the part of the architecture, and then it became sustainable. And that one is a really qualitative, very strong one, I feel, because it does the job. It gets people to exchange all sorts of ideas. People get information, latest updates on medical expertise, and it is sustainable. And you can now it is taken as a model and done in other countries as well. So that's to me a real quality.
Yeah, and that's a good transition maybe from the education side into the healthcare side. Kind of in between those two, one of the initiatives we have is interprofessional education. So we were talking about the social networking component when we can get use these mobile devices to get people from different disciplines working together. And again, like you mentioned, in rural areas where you may not have the opportunity to have various areas of expertise um, at one place geographically, you can still bring them in. And I think there's something going on in healthcare to learn how to use those tools or learn to use the tools to better develop on those kinds of interactions. So IPE and primary care within rural areas, I think, really lends itself well to the mobile world.
Absolutely. And also it builds upon something where the healthcare world is already strong in, like telemedicine. It's one of the strong pillars in rural education because it's this nice combination of need and exchange and willingness to improve living conditions. So I really feel that it's the patches are beginning to be filled with good initiatives, and everything really gets together. On the other side, it's also very tough because all of a sudden you see this the opportunities. Although the opportunities multiply, you see that the market is becoming um, more difficult in a way because everybody will, well, if you have a good genetic system, you can reproduce it. So it's a very interesting time, I think, to really go for projects and think about strategies in the long run. So,
Do you see any concerns in the projects? And I'm thinking mostly healthcare projects that you're seeing with regulatory requirements and mobile devices, or more generally telemedicine.
how do you mean regulator?
With governments putting certain requirements
Ah,
on things and getting involved in that interaction.
absolutely. And it depends on the policies that they use and also the, well, let's say the restrictions that they put on certain projects or the demands that they put on certain people that want to start projects or something. Now, it's of course a very tricky thing because if you don't want something to happen, you can really use mobile devices as an ideal tool to say, look, as long as you can't absolutely promise me that it will be safe, that it will be impossible to crack the data stream, that you all these kinds of things, you can't start. I mean, it's ideal. I mean, no, everyone knows in IT, in the end, it's not going to be 100% safe. So they have this card to stop with or express their requirements in a very easy way. So,
Yeah. You hit on a couple of things that we've had questions or people in the chat room talking about. One is the security issue, and are there anything in the mobile world to kind of address some of the security concerns? And then a second one is when we get out into rural areas, what is the access to high-speed internet connectivity, and how important is that in some of the projects that you're working on?
um, on the security side, I mean, it's be- well, it's beginning to get better, and on the other hand, the ones who have uh, a black agenda, let's say, are beginning to get better as well. So there's this, yeah, this like always this differentiation
We call it
taking place.
leapfrog.
Ah, yes, that's nice. So but it is feasible to do it. But you must really screen, if you, let's say, if you don't develop something yourself, if you must combine tools or softwares, then you must really make sure that the software developers of those tools really had an eye for security risks. For instance, I mean, and most of the time, if you have such a company, you can be sure that they have solutions that fit rural areas as well, because the high internet access is very spotty in certain areas. So you will have to face non-connected areas. But if you have, there are mobile tools that work in offline and online mode, and that actually can find the moment where you have access again, internet access again, and then start to synchronize all their data. And that can be done very, very safely if the program lends itself for it, because you can encrypt anything you send. So in a way, it is possible to make it safe, but you must really completely go through all the different levels of IT necessities, of screen the software, screen the tools, and screen the people, because sometimes it can be just because they don't know it.
Yeah. So there are some really good projects that are out there, but one of the things I'm curious about is really what makes mobile projects different from traditional IT projects. What are some of the considerations that a developer or designer, as they're thinking about a project, needs to take into account in the mobile world that they may not even think about or consider in a traditional project?
From a developer point of view, and of course that's always, you're most of the time you work in a team, so you have all these factors. From the developer side, it's the fact that you can go for a project that is bring your own device, so then you have this multitude of devices that must be able to deliver content or access your platform or whatever your project wants the people to be able to do that. And which also affects the design of the content itself, because if you have a small screen, it's going to be different than a big screen. It's going to have all these different factors. And on the other hand, you have the design must be so user-friendly. You can't ask people to log in by passing 5 clicks every time. I mean, they're going to stop wanting to engage with it. So to me, although there are a lot of designer issues, it's mostly working with the human factors that is so important. Make them feel at ease, give them digital skills, or let them know what the benefits are of engaging in a mobile project, because they are going to feel close to it, because it will be with their own device. But if the road towards the end goal is too rickety or has too many technical barriers that they must take, then chances of them dropping out are increase rapidly.
Yeah. What skill sets do you think, I'm thinking mostly of faculty here, what skill sets do people need to be developing, or what tools should they be playing with to kind of put together a toolbox for these kinds of mobile projects?
At where we are now with with the mobile options that are out there, I feel that you don't really have to develop anything anymore. You can really use it like Lego blocks. You just pick whatever you like. You can pick mobile applications. You can go for HTML5 options, but that are ready-made, so really ready-made ones. You don't have to do it yourself in a way. It will save a lot of time if you just put things together. But what is important is that you really play to the human being. I mean that you don't deliver in my institute at the Tropical Institute. Um, you, we were at first we were really trying to get people to get their iPads, engage in content, create content, share it, use it for communication, blogging, all these kinds of stuff. And then in the end, we had, well, quite some faculty willing and actually engaging with the iPad for various reasons, but some of them still don't want to do it. And to me, it's very logical because sometimes you have resistance and it takes some types of some profiles much longer to adopt the change, whether it is technological or something else. And so I feel that the only thing to do is to just gradually keep on providing the benefits, keep showing the benefits, keep offering training, try to engage with the interests that they have, and eventually it will be institutional. Well, you can of course force it upon people, but then they don't necessarily use it with enthusiasm. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's good advice to stay focused on kind of the human elements of it. I'm wondering, are the human elements changing, or do they change for a mobile world? And the example that you frequently hear is attention span. It's very difficult to stay engaged with a small screen size or a small device. But then the statistics also show that people are spending more and more time on these mobile devices. So it's a little conflicting.
I'm afraid I don't have a good answer to that because I'm fascinated by it as well. Because if you look around, people do spend more time on their mobiles, but they click much quicker. They ask for snack bite, snack size type of content, but on the other hand, there are books, really, like these big books are starting to take off again as well. So is it based on narratives? Is it based on the sheer abundance of content that can be consumed, that people just say, wait this and wait that? And also, maybe a short attention span doesn't necessarily result in less learning or less knowledge. I don't know. I'm fascinated by it. But I do think that each tool that we use has an effect on the human being, and vice versa. So in that respect, you could see it with computers, you can see it with television. Any new technology will have this effect because we are, of course, under the influence of new things around us.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, one of the things that I think may be a little bit different in the mobile world, and I'm not even sure about this, whether it's mobile or whether it's just a transition for people getting more comfortable with technology in general. But I saw you had a recent post about profiles and how important a profile is in being able to connect with someone else. And I'm wondering, do you see that people are more comfortable with putting profiles together and being kind of having an online presence with mobile projects than they do when they're just surfing behind their safe desk?
Um, Again, there's this colleague of mine who is researching what type of human profiles, you need to put together to get the best possible team. And in his case, it's an IT team. Now, what struck me when I read some of his early reflections was that you could really transpose it to other fields as well. And now, what I'm thinking is, I really feel that if you are a researcher or if you are a medical person, you need to get your profile out there, because otherwise people won't be able to find you anyway, and you won't be able to become part of the team of a mixture of people's different with different characteristics. And so I feel that it's, but there's the tricky part. I mean, if you sometimes you have an idea of a person, and but they what they do is they project an image, and then it's the same with virtual profiles. I mean, you if you're not careful and if you're not trying to be as honest as possible, there's going to be a conflict at a certain point, because the real person doesn't match the virtual profile of the person. So I'm not sure. I think that it's so important that to build a profile, yes, but also to build a real profile of yourself. Go for strengths, of course, but also go for truth. I mean, certain areas you won't be able to know stuff or something, and then it's easier to be seen as a trustworthy person by most of the people. Of course, you won't reach to everything.
I think another important thing to include in profiles, and this goes along with honesty in a lot of ways, is what are your interests? You know, what are the passions that you have? Because if you're really looking to put yourself out there to build some collaboration and start some of these projects and find other people, you need to have that layer of what your interests are so that you can self-identify.
Absolutely. I mean, you're so right about that. But it's also difficult, because then you really put yourself out there. But I also feel like you, the more you do that, the more you are willing to do it, the more you will be part of the broader network, let's say.
And I was going to kind of try and move us into the area of what can faculty do to start these projects. We've talked a little bit about skills, what skills they need. We talked a little bit about the importance of kind of playing with some of these tools so that you can just pick and choose and bring different things into a project. We've talked a little bit about building a profile so that you can connect with other people of similar ideas. Are there other things that people can do to go about starting on mobile?
I think there are two really important things to do. First, really pinpoint a need for a mobile project, be it in education or for health. But really a need that you couldn't answer now and that you feel in your gut is going to be answered by using a mobile solution. And then start really small. Don't that's a tricky one, because if you start to look at all these projects that are out there, and some of them really capture the imagination and massive, but if you do your first one, really keep it small, because the amount of learning that comes out of setting up a mobile project just for the first time is so massive that the second time or the second project you will do will be able to do this big and enormous thing. And if you start small, you can just take that small piece and embed it in the bigger whole you are building with the complete faculty. So I really believe in pinpointing a need, because that's the only reason why people will take their mobile device, engage with it, and then really make sure that you start with something that is feasible. Don't ask people to develop something for you. No, just go for applications that exist, or simple mobile tools that are available on each mobile device, something like that. Really start small.
What about models that are already out there? Are there any instructional design models that people could take advantage of?
No, actually, that's a really nice one, because there's an, an initiative, a research initiative from ADL, and they are looking at building a mobile instructional design framework. because in fact, so everybody talks about, yeah, you need to take this into account and this, but it's much more. You need to make sure that it fits your institutional design, of course, and your institutional architecture, but also that it has a logic behind it. And it's not only giving small snacks of content. No, it's about a real complete institutional rollout that makes it interesting. So if you go to ADL, well, they are looking for people who are willing to participate in the research to build a mobile instructional design set. So, well, it would be nice.
Yeah, that would be a great thing to add to the comments area. A link where people can go and find some of those models. So if you've got some of those links, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I can just go and have, well, about that mobile learning instructional design, I just wrote a post about it, so I will link to the post because you need to get in contact with Jason Haag. Well, that's the Flemish pronunciation of his name. So I'm going to put it here. And you can just enter his research, and just really nice. And I also have, some links to mobile health reports and white papers that might be of interest.
Oh, super. Yeah, that would be great. I'm looking for questions. Does anyone out there have any other questions before we have to let Inge go? I see a couple, and I see a couple people actually did put in their tweets. So thank you, Stacy. I know we didn't get to things like Fitbit or Nike Fuel Band, but those are good ideas for the same conversation, those mobile type devices that we were talking about.
I'm just going to this. And I will add an ebook as well, but it's an expensive. The other ones are for free, but this one is an expensive book, but it has a lot of nice article in it. So I put the price just to
Excellent.
Scare off people.
And we've also, in the promotionals that we've done, we've put links to your profile and some of your blogs and whatnot. So hopefully that will help people with reference materials. There's lots that Inge's got out there that whatever topic you're interested in related to mobile learning, and really even healthcare as well. I'm sure that you can find things there. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, or just send me a mail because I'm always willing to exchange notes or simply give things. So
that's great. Inge, I want to thank you a ton. It's been a good discussion. I share your passion, but even when talking to you, I just get more passionate because it's so exciting.
We should do something.
We should. I'm going to keep that in mind. The problem is time. You know how that works.
Absolutely.
All right, I think with that, then we'll wrap it up for this session today. Stay tuned. A couple weeks from now, we have a session. I think we're back on Tuesdays. So that would put us at, I don't know, Jean, do you remember the date? Be like February 10th, maybe? Our first session, or our next session will be on Google Apps. And so I think we're going to do a little series. That was another area that people had a lot of interest in, just how they can better use Google Apps. So we'll go from a big picture kind of session today into a little bit more detailed kind of training session in a couple of weeks. And hopefully, Inge, you can see all of the comments coming in, appreciation from lots of ATSU faculty members. So wonderful. Thank you much.
Thank you also. And have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.